What is up, guys? Brian here. Today I want to talk about how to make it through this crypto bear market. You just saw Coinbase's CEO just kind of came out and basically said, prepare for a couple more years of this bear market. And that's something a lot of guys don't want to hear. And if this is your first cycle, it's not a fun process and nothing happens as fast as you think it's going to happen. So I'm going to talk a little bit about my experience in the previous bear markets and also how I'm approaching this bear market as well. So if you guys are new to the channel, my name is Brian and I have been in crypto since 2013. So I've been in the 2013-2014 run up, and then we had what I call the crypto nuclear winter was in 2015. That was really bad. That was way worse. I mean, for myself personally, but then also just kind of what was happening in crypto, there wasn't as much going on. Suddenly 2016 rolled around, we had Zcash come out, we had the Ethereum fork that, basically Ethereum Classic being the original chain, and then Ethereum, it basically was forked off of it. So we had that, and then STEEM came out. So the STEEM chain and then all these other derivatives that happened after that. That was an eventful thing. So there was a few things happening and stuff like that. But for all practical purposes, 2015 was actually like really bad. And then it wasn't until 2016 where stuff kind of started picking up. Then we had the 2017, 2018 run up. And then in basically that bear market, I didn't feel like that one was nearly as bad. Partially because I timed it better as far as my buys. So one thing I learned in the 2013-2014 cycle and then kind of going through 2015 was that, again, things weren't going to happen as fast as you thought they were, and that a lot of people were buying back in too soon. So their cost basis wasn't very low, and then basically expended their capital, and then started to even lose hope that there was going to be another rally and there was going to be another run, which, by the way, there will be another run, there will be another, bull market, simply because the game is too perfect. The game is too perfect, and when you see stuff like, whether it be gambling, people still step up to the roulette wheel, people still, buy lottery tickets, people still play the stock market, no matter how many times they lose, people will jump in and chase after crypto. It is one of the only assets that you can make just extraordinary gains and have an extraordinary lifestyle. So people will chase that. It's too tempting. So there will be another bull market. Don't lose faith in that. But it's not going to happen as fast as people typically think it's going to happen, and there's going to be a lot of pitfalls, and there's going to be a lot of fake outs along the way. Now, as I've said before in my other videos, I think that we are going to have additional capitulation moves where this thing is going to drop out from underneath us. And so as we get later in the year, one of the things that I'm going to be doing, and is something that you can potentially do, is putting a little bit of money on exchanges. I don't like to leave a bunch of money on any of these exchanges, even if they're trusted, Kraken, Coinbase, any of that kind of stuff. But basically having some, orders in there and having a little bit money out there, so that if the floor drops out, there's some kind of like very, very quick, price drop, capitulation kind of move and stuff like that, you could end up picking up some cheap coins that way and stuff like that. So but I don't put the majority, I don't do the majority of my orders that way, just because I don't like to leave stuff hanging out on the exchange. Another thing is that what I want to mention, especially if you're newer to the channel, is in the last two cycles, it's taken basically a year from the peak down to the bottom, but the bottom is always higher than the previous bottom in the previous bear market. So it's like a stair step pattern where it's like you have these lower highs like each basically bear market, and that's what I figure is going to continue as well. If we see $15,000 Bitcoin, personally I think that you should try to scoop up as much as you potentially can, and ride that out. Maybe it goes down to 11,000, maybe it goes down to 10,000. Ethereum as well, it goes back under 1,000, maybe gets down to 500. It's certainly a buying opportunity, and we're going to see as the beacon chain launches And you know, if a lot of the people, what kind of percentage yield people are going to get, you know, if they have the 32 Ethereum to essentially, you know, basically, you know, get the, you know, proof of stake rewards and stuff like that. So that's something people are going to be going after. And then the miners who have their hardware, they're going to be looking for other chains to mine, whether that be Monero or Zcash. Zcash said they were going to go to proof of stake as well. So miners are going to have to pivot, and that's, you know, during these bear markets, that's one of the things that the miners, it's a very, very tough thing to be mining. And again, like I've said before, in previous videos, kind of previous cycle, don't try to mine on any kind of scale unless you have 4 cents a kilowatt hour power, 4 cents a kilowatt hour power or lower, because you will not make it through the bear market. And then you know, miners have, you know, gotten into trouble. They've had to sell some of their coins and stuff like that because they kind of timed what they thought was going to be the peak, or their projections ended up being kind of wrong and stuff like that. But even as a mid-sized miner, even if you have kind of your house full of GPUs or something like that, unless you have 4 cents a kilowatt hour power or lower, you're not going to make it through the summer. You know, so you're probably feeling that heat right now. Just have to turn off the equipment and stuff like that. And you know, it's a maybe that somebody can make it through with 6 cents a kilowatt hour power, but pretty much 4 cents a kilowatt hour power or lower, because as you try to scale up, obviously there's going to be more heat created, and you're going to have more kind of issues trying to cool your situation and trying to vent that heat and try to move that air. You know, and so you just run into all kinds of other issues and stuff like that, trying to get through the summer and try to get back to where like prices are more sustainable for kind of mining and stuff like that. Now, as far as what am I doing this cycle? So again, not jumping back in too early, not getting overexcited, any of these like little rallies and stuff like that, letting a lot of this stuff burn off, and you know, a lot of the major projects and stuff like that, they're gonna, you know, kind of be up there in the top 10, top 20. And then as we get further into the cycle and other stuff kind of slides away that has lost momentum, has lost hype, then you're able to pick from that top 10, top 20. And then when you start kind of like putting in your buys and stuff like that, maybe doing some of the stuff where you do have some orders in to catch some of these, like, you know, just death drop, you know, guillotine kind of drops and stuff like that when we had these major capitulations. But then also another thing I'm doing is I'm re-engaging more heavily back on like Hive, STEEM, DTube, and Blurt. So Blurt was like a fork of basically Hive or STEEM, you know, and Hive was obviously forked from STEEM. But with DTube, if I upload the stuff to YouTube, then I'm able to put it out on DTube, and then I'm able to actually have it log in so that it actually posts it to all 4 of those. It'll post it to DTube, it'll post it to STEAM, it'll post it to Hive, and it'll post it to Blurt. So I'm able to earn all those ways. And also another one to look out for is Leo Finance. If you're talking about crypto related stuff or financial stuff like that, you can post on Leo Finance and you can earn some Leo, and you can earn Hive. So it's posting on both those. So I try to maximize my efforts to earn the most crypto by posting, you know, in a certain area, and then basically it's disseminating through all these different, you know, all these different blockchains and stuff like that, and getting all these different various tokens and stuff. So I'm re-engaging with that. I'm looking at that, and then I'm just doing a lot of research and stuff. One of the things, you know, and in my head I was like, well, I remember Paxos Gold, for instance, and I was actually looking around and I was like, you know, I wonder how much activity is going on with like Paxos Gold. So Paxos Gold is essentially a crypto that is pegged to gold prices. And then I also saw Tether Gold, and I was like, that's kind of interesting. The one thing I did see that was interesting with Tether Gold was that FTX actually added it, which surprised me. I was like, okay, they added, you know, something that was being launched by Tether or by this Bitfinex kind of crew, whereas some of these major exchanges try to stay away from the whole kind of Tether situation. But even Coinbase added, I think they added Tether, I forget what they added. It was like something to do with Tether or whatever, that Coinbase even added something, and then that made me think, well, this is like super kind of wound up in the crypto sphere, that maybe Tether doesn't fail like we've always kind of worried about. So I'm kind of looking at that stuff, looking at opportunities. Is that a place to move money to? And you know, is there potential to earn some yield with something like a Paxos Gold or a Paxos or a you know, a Tether Gold kind of thing? If people do, let's say we slip further into this recession and things get really bad in the stock market, do people then gravitate towards gold if they're unsure about the crypto market at that given time? And that's yet to be seen. You know, I do firmly believe that, like, you know, Bitcoin and the cryptos and stuff like that are, you know, essentially a better option typically. But again, I have to use all these as, you know, it's a timing thing. You know, there is a time to be in the US dollar. There is a time to be potentially in gold or silver. There is a time to be, you know, in the stock and option market. There is a time to be in cars or real estate, you know, this and that. So moving in and out of these markets. But the point being is that I'm not getting like over anxious and jumping back in super quick. And I've got a lot of stuff going on. I mean, if you guys are following me on Instagram, I have a distal bicep tendon tear where it tore away from the bone. And so, you know, I'm kind of going through that process, and so that's a little bit of distraction on the crypto related stuff. But I am still kind of laying the foundation for the next bull run, whether that's going to be, you know, a year in the future, a couple years in the future, and, you know, set myself up for that next run. You know, you can continue to ride these waves. Now, that being said, this next run, this next bull market, you're going to have to bring in potentially more energy to get the multiples that you're going to want, because as more big money flows in to crypto, which it has, they don't need to earn a 5x or a 10x. You put $1 billion in a crypto, they're going to be happy, you know, to pull out $2 billion, you know, and so on and so forth. So you have players bringing in hundreds of millions and billions of dollars. They don't have to earn as big of a multiple, and so they're going to sell, and they're going to reap those rewards. And so it's going to be a lot harder to sit there and, you know, sit around kind of waiting for a 10x or 20x. That stuff's still going to happen. There are still going to be projects that are going to 10x and 20x and 100x and, you know, do all that kind of stuff. So that being said, some of the more established coins, you know, whether it be a Bitcoin or whether it be an Ethereum or whether it even with Dogecoin this next time around and stuff like that, there's going to be more eyes on it and bigger money. So keep that in mind as well. Now, like I said, and here's some of the main ways I'm going to re-engage with a lot of the ways that you're able to earn, you know, as far as the blogging related stuff and the content related stuff to earn, you know, DTube, STEEM, Blurt, Hive, all those, and other tokens as well, like Leo, and then get more engaged in that community and stuff like that, and kind of like rebuild a base as far as the earning. Also, various different airdrops, and looking out for various different forks. If you have long-term holdings for, let's say, your Ethereum, you can end up with Pulse Chain, and just kind of keeping privy to various different forks and various different things that are happening where you do end up with other coins and stuff like that. So just kind of keeping aware of what is going on, and then, but not necessarily bringing in like huge amounts of money to rebuild that base until we've really kind of like bottomed out and we've seen some more of these capitulation moves. Another thing as well, potential hackathons and other ways to engage with the community and potentially earn, you know, from chains that are trying to incentivize developers and getting people active in their communities and stuff like that. So, because there will be a few projects that will sort of do okay during this bear market, and then there's going to be a lot of projects that are just going to essentially, you know, fade away, and then they're not going to be able to survive through this whole thing. That being said, what are some of the ways that you guys are kind of getting through the bear market, and you know, various ways that you guys have seen to potentially earn more crypto and to start stacking crypto through this whole thing? as we kind of go through this. I don't think that this bear market is going to be as bad as 2015. But that being said, last bear market that was 2019 and then 2020, since everything got started up a year early in 2020 because of the pandemic, we didn't have as long, so it wasn't as drawn out the last time. And I even had friends that were like, when stuff started going up in late 2020, they were like, wait a minute, this isn't supposed to happen for another year. And I was like, it's happening now. It's happening now. Like, you got to get in, and like, so be ready for that kind of thing. Like, things could change, but also as well, there's going to be fake outs. So that's my main thing, is like, right now I'm not seeing anything. And then the thing is like, when you start to build these positions, oftentimes it makes more sense to build positions, in Bitcoin, Ethereum, and then some of the maybe like, the layer one, smart contract platforms that are Ethereum compatible. You start building in those, and then other stuff that's kind of in the top 10 or thereabouts, whether that be some Doge. And then also I always like to have some Monero, because from a code base perspective, diversifying in code base, so basically Bitcoin and Ethereum, those are different code bases, but like Litecoin and Dogecoin would be similar code base, to Bitcoin. So that's not really diversified, from the code perspective. But then Monero is a different code base from that. So if you had, let's say, like Bitcoin, so let's pretend from a code base perspective, you had Bitcoin, Ethereum, Monero. Those would be different code bases. And so if there is a fatal flaw or something, somehow, some way, that one of them suffered, then potentially the others would survive, or that it wouldn't be affected by it. But then, that being said, some of the other stuff, I really believe that Bitcoin, Ethereum, and BNB have secured their futures. Those are kind of like world reserve assets at this point. So in the depths of the bear market, if you are stacking, it makes sense to probably just stack those three, and maybe a few others or something like that, and go light on other stuff. So you go real heavy on stuff that could potentially long tail out a lot more, or just bleed out more and more and more and more. And then if it loses the hype around it going into next cycle because it's so far out, then you could miss out kind of on a lot there. Just remember that 6 months in the crypto market is an eternity. So, if we're in for another couple years, you got several eternities to deal with. So, that being said, what are you guys looking at to earn crypto, and how are you guys making it through this bear market? Follow me on all social media at Brian Phobos, YouTube, Instagram, Steam It, Twitter, Hive, Blurt, DTube, everywhere. See you guys.